What is going on, everyone? Anthony Drew Gary here, host of the How To Show, where we talk about optimizing life, money, and happiness one how to at a time. And this week on the show, I have a special guest joining me as a result of seeing something in a Facebook group that made me go, wow. And so what happened was there was somebody in a Facebook group that was trying to find a mentor, essentially, in the world of photo booths for rent. Sounded like it was a fun idea, wanted to get involved, and someone commented, yeah, I've grown a successful business into a seven-figure side hustle with photo booths. And I said, excuse me? So the gentleman's name is Zach Schiffman, and we're going to have him on the show this week because I've reached out to him and said, all right, I've got to learn how you did this. And so I don't want to tell his story because, frankly, he tells it a lot better than I do, and we're going to switch over and talk to Zach now. Zach, welcome to the How To Show. Thanks for joining me.
Glad to be here. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So I wanted to talk to you specifically because it came in a group that we're both a part of that you have built a business while having a full-time job. And this concept of how to build a business is always an interesting one to me because there's so many different ways to do it, so many different types of industries. And so I want to ask you, if you would, to spend a little bit of time talking about what you've done and maybe how it's adjacent or similar to some of the things that you've been skilled at in your past and where that's come from. And we'll just get a little bit of your story here, if you don't mind.
Yeah. So I guess I'll start with a little bit of my story because it kind of goes into how I ended up creating a business and building it. I'm 36 years old. About 12 years ago, I was few years out of college. I was working in TV production. I had a dual major in television production and entertainment marketing. At the time, I didn't know if I would love TV as much as I did throughout high school and college, and I wanted a marketing background to kind of fall back on. But I ended up loving TV. I still do TV. And I was working at ESPN in Bristol, Connecticut as a stage manager. And I was kind of working weird hours, a lot of late nights and whatnot. And back then, the pay wasn't that great. I was making probably, I think, $27,000 a year to start, which, I mean, it would lower cost of living in the middle of Connecticut, but not a ton, especially, in 2023. I mean, this was 2009, 2010. But yeah, so I wanted to find something that I would enjoy that would help me be able to afford going out to dinner with friends. And, if I needed to buy something, that I wasn't like worried about money as much. I had always been into photography, and I did that throughout college, not professionally or anything, but it was always a passion and like an interest of mine. And the year I graduated, I went to my cousin's wedding out in Las Vegas, and the photographer there did a photo booth. And I hadn't been to a lot of weddings. I hadn't seen a lot of photo booths, sort of like the kiosks you see at a mall or anything like that, or at a theme park, etc. And it wasn't really a photo booth, but it was a photographer-driven setup with proper lighting, and then they sent you the photos afterwards, or they printed them out. And I thought, wow, this is really cool. So flash forward a year or so, my grandmother unfortunately passed away, and she left us some money. And I did the responsible adult thing, and I paid off all my student loans with what was left. I got out of all my debt, because if you're making $27,000 a year, the less debt you have, the better. And after all that was said and done, I had a few $1,000s left, and I was like, well, let me do something for me. And I bought my first like real nice camera. I bought some portraiture lighting, things like that. And I thought I was going to be a wedding photographer and shoot my friends or do some portrait style things on the side. Booked my first wedding. Nearly missed the first kiss. It was the most stressful day of my life. And I was just like, this is not for me. And then I remembered that photo booth I saw at my cousin's wedding. And I was like, this seems like such a better idea because you just show up, you take photos. It doesn't matter if you miss it because you can retake it. It's just the fun aspect. And then it's done. You don't have to go home and edit and make albums and do this and that. It's just it's the fun part that all the guests love. So I went on Groupon, and back then Groupon was a deal a day. It wasn't the marketplace that you see it now. So it was great from a marketing standpoint. I was very cheap. They took half of the profit. I think we were like a $400 deal. So I made $200 on every event I booked. But I was blasted out to like the greater Hartford, Connecticut region. And it got me enough bookings that I was able to buy the rest of the gear I needed, a professional photo printer, backdrops, props, those kind of things. And I launched my business, which we called Studio Z Photobooths, which has evolved now into Studio Z custom photo activations. And I can get into that too. And from there, I just started doing backyard weddings, smaller weddings, and then things over the next few years started growing. And I was still just a camera on a tripod with a light. It wasn't the prettiest thing in the world, but I started to get known because my quality was very good. And more planners, were introduced to me, and then they would introduce me to their brides and grooms, and I'd start to book more and more weddings. But working full time in TV with hours that were like 4:30 to midnight, those kind of things, I had to use vacation days, holidays. Like I couldn't book far out. Right. So it was kind of a slow burn. And then we fast forward a little bit, and I got promoted, and then I got poached. And I got poached by NBC to come work in New York as a freelancer. And it was a little scary, but it was a jump where they said, hey, this is a 6-figure job for doing the same thing you're doing now. And I said, I'm in. Okay, let's go. And I moved across the state closer to the New York border of Connecticut in Fairfield County, which is a lot wealthier of an area. And that's where I kind of like turned my business on. I had more money, so I started buying better gear. I bought like an actual photo booth kiosk that was a lot more professional looking. I started working a lot higher end events, and I started working in New York. I had my weekends off with this new job, and I was able to, book a client 8 months, a year in advance, because I knew either I'm not working weekends or I'm freelance now. So if I need to take a day, I just tell them I'm not available. And that has been sort of my mindset for the next 10 years of this business. I'm still freelance. I work for the Today Show on NBC. I'm a stage manager and assistant director there. Those are early mornings. I work from like 4:30 in the morning to 11 most days. And then I come home and I run this business. This business has grown into a 7-figure business last year. And it is now my full-time job, and my TV I call my side job. the TV's for the benefits, the pension, the health insurance, and my sanity. But my business is my pride and joy right now.
Yeah, and I think we're just cracking the surface of everybody watching understanding why I wanted to talk to you, because we have gone from you with a camera and maybe a tripod to a 7-figure business, and I feel like we need to have a few steps in between there, because you are an absolute success, but you're an overnight success that happened to take 20 years in the process, like most of them do. But I think it would be appropriate right now. You've got some promotional video that we're going to splice in here so that people can really get a visual of what we're talking about, what Studio Z is all about. So now I need to get a little bit more of this story. How do we actually go from a tripod and a camera, maybe even a booth, to what we just saw. I've seen this video a couple of times. I was blown away by the concept, the creativity behind it. And I feel like there's some steps along the way. And I also want to get into the fact that, again, this business for a while was limited by your hours and your availability. Did you start to hire employees, and what's that part of it look like, so that you can make sure that you're giving the top rate experience in this category to everyone every time?
My first 7 years, I did this all by myself. There
Okay.
was a lot of burnout involved, especially around the holidays, where you go from doing weddings and events on the weekends to the corporate holiday parties in December are all Monday through Friday, and then the weekends are off. But I was also working my morning job, so I was working early morning, late night, 3 hours of sleep, do it again, and I would get sick. I would burn out. I have a few employees now, and they just work events for me. They're not like full-time staff or anything, but they've taken over basically all the weddings, the social events for me, unless it's something more extravagant. And then the bigger corporate events that we do, that we focus on, those I'm usually on site for, or I travel for. But that's helped me sort of reclaim weekends, because my staff can now do 80-85% of the events, which is great. There's still part of me that's always like, it's not the same as if I was there doing it. Like, you pick out the nuances that maybe my output would look exactly the same, but I did the output, versus critiquing what my employees are doing. That's still something I struggle with. But yeah, it's basically been a one-man shop. I bought a house to support all the equipment that I had grown. I have a storage unit in New York City, and then I ended up renting now a warehouse a few months back in New Jersey that I just outgrew the house, and I just have so much equipment. But yeah, between that and we advertise nationally. So big events I travel for, I bring people with me if needed. Smaller events, I advertise as a local in LA and Vegas mainly, but then other major cities as well, just for SEO purposes. And if needed, I have friends that I've made in the past 10 years that do similar businesses in all these markets, that we call it white labeling or subcontracting, that they'll send their team out. They have the same style, the same aesthetic as me, the same equipment. I handle all the client relations. I do all, our graphics and all the back end stuff. And then they go out essentially as an extension of my employees and actually do the event. So I don't have to, fly out to LA and maybe lose the event because I got to add $2,000-3,000 on for travel costs and things like that.
Well, yeah, that makes a ton of sense, and was one of the questions that I had. Thinking about this, you are a New York operation, and I saw just recently you had a convincing presence in Vegas just a couple of weeks ago, and I was curious, like, are you hiring a Ryder truck to get all of those things across the country? And it sounds like you figured that part out really well, that you have partners in the similar industry with the similar types of products. To get the experience very similar, and to be able to share resources that way. And so that's a neat spin on this, that an extension of your business. It reminds me of the Ubers of the world and the Airbnbs, where you can still benefit at a global scale. We'll call it a national scale, and not have to necessarily own equipment in all 50 states. I really like it, man.
Yeah. So it helps where, like, last year, for instance, Harry Styles had an album launch, and an old client of ours was doing the PR for it, and they said, hey, we have pop-ups in 7 cities worldwide. And New York was one of their main ones, LA, a few other areas in the States, and then things like London, Belgium, Amsterdam, and a few others. And they wanted me for New York, and I think LA. And I said, well, where are your other ones? And I said, just do it all through me. And they're like, you can do this? And I'm like, I have people everywhere. And they knew I was subcontracting at that scale. Like, they know I don't have a Berlin team, like, things like that. But I took that as an opportunity. I said, instead of you having 7 different companies that you need to work with and synergize between to make everything look good, let me be the middleman. I'll handle all the back end stuff, and you just deal with me. And they loved it. And that was, a 6-figure contract for a week of work, of active work. And then there was plenty of prep, but those kind of things is what brought me from 6 to 7 figures last year, and being able to scale that way.
Yeah, makes total sense. And so I don't want to peel back the intellectual piece of your business model too far,
Sure.
but it sounds to me like, once you have some of these key components together, you can reuse these over and over and over again. And maybe you get better cameras or you get better lights or
Sure.
things like that. But incrementally speaking, your fixed costs are probably pretty low on average, and you get to charge per event. It sounds like you charge per event.
We charge per event, and then it's, what are we doing? Are we doing like a normal photo booth? Is it a 360 video or other type of video activation, or something more, extreme? If we're building set pieces or custom backdrops, things like that, those are all add-ons. And yeah, from there, it's just a constant growth and making those connections and then repeat clients and whatnot. And the one thing I've always done in this business is never hold debt. If I will happily pitch something I don't have, but I will sell it at a cost that covers me to make my ROI 1 to 2 events. So if I buy something, I know it's because it's already paid for or 80% paid for, and I'm not just holding on to it and buying something and hoping it sells.
Yeah.
And that's just been, I think in any business, obviously not every business can you work that way. Sometimes, if you're starting a restaurant or something, you obviously are going to have to probably take out a loan to buy all the equipment and things like that. But in a world like I do, it has worked out in that way where, hey, so-and-so client has this wild idea. Okay, let me go execute it. It's going to cost this much to do it,
Yeah, and I think it's appropriate. You're growing at the scale of your revenue, and it seems to be working for you very well. And I commend you for it. I just knowing how I got connected with you through the financial independence community, I started to piece together that, you and I think alike in a lot of those types of ways. And so I really commend you at the fact that that you're scaling this thing appropriately. And so let's talk in a couple of different directions.
Sure.
Over the last 10 years, what's something that that you found out was either harder than you expected, took 3 times as long, pain points along the growth pattern?
Yeah, I mean, COVID was a huge one of them. It's always just been the ability to pivot and think outside the box. There are a lot of people in my industry, especially now. If you know what a 360 photo booth is, it's a platform you stand on and camera spins around you, creates like a slow motion video.
Yep.
There were very few people who did this 5 years ago. We were one of them. I imported a platform for over 10 grand from the United Kingdom because they didn't sell them in the States because of patents and things that were in place through one company. And we made great money off of it. And then the patents lifted and everyone started selling these now. And now there's probably 700 companies in New York that just do it. And where I used to make $6,000 an event on it, people sell it for $150 an hour. And it's a wild scene. So then I've now made my money. I still do it, but I move on and I go for what's the next thing. And while all these people are flooding, focusing on the trend that's on its last leg, I look for what the next trend is. And then like I look to red carpet events, things like, have you ever seen the Glambot on E? We do that now, which is a large cinema robot that many other people can't do. In a few years, maybe they will, and I will move on to the next thing. But the hangups, sorry, I got on a tangent there. I was talking about COVID and being able to pivot. The event industry shut down. I had all these huge contracts, things like the Kids' Choice Awards, Coachella, the Masters, that all died overnight. And it was a lot of money that I lost. It was equipment I had purchased. It was clients that now disappeared because they lost their jobs at these agencies and companies. And, their emails were shut off when you message them 8 months later. And we had to figure out ways to survive. I lost my TV job for 8 months as well. And then it was a slow trickle to get back. And we ended up pivoting to virtual photo booths, which were just, hey, you take a photo on your phone on a website and it gets a branded photo. And it sounds stupid, but it made us 6 figures. It kept afloat because companies had budgets to spend, especially in the corporate space. It wasn't really for weddings, but a lot of these companies came out and they were like, if they don't use their budget, they lose it for the next fiscal year. Yep. So they were putting on these virtual Zoom happy hours for their employees, or virtual conferences it became, and they still exist. I have 2 virtual photo booths live this week for random conferences that aren't back to in person. Be it maybe they found out they can save a ton of money doing this way while still getting the same, happiness from the guests. But yeah, that was wild to me, and it's just the matter of thinking, what can I do to move this industry to the next step?
Yeah, you paint an interesting picture of it reminds me of the quote from Wayne Gretzky that I skate to where the puck is going. And
Yeah.
you seem to be doing that piece by piece by piece and figuring out what the trends are in your marketplace by being a student of your industry. And it's admirable. It's fascinating. I'm glad that we're getting to talk about it. I'd be remiss if I didn't ask, just for my own entertainment purposes, over the course of you doing this in a bunch of different capacities, different industries, rubbing elbows with people. Talk to me about your selfie portfolio. Who have we met in the process that we probably wouldn't have otherwise?
I will attune that more to the TV side. I mean, working at the Today Show, and I work as a stage manager, which, if you don't know what a stage manager is, they deal with the on-air talent, the guests, the musicians. I have probably met just about everybody. I have photos with plenty. I don't take a ton of selfies with guests much anymore. That kind of that has worn off of me in the past 10 years. But there are times where, like, Chrissy Teigen will be on the show in the morning, and then I'm doing an event at night, and she's there too, and she'll give you that look like, don't I know you from somewhere? And I'm like, we worked together this morning. And she's like, why are you here? That I explain it, and then they're like, oh, that's really cool, and those kind of things. So there is like a weird mesh of my worlds, which has also helped me with my business, because I meet plenty of people, or I work with coworkers and stuff, that now, like, I have a photo booth at NBC in the audience lounge before guests go and see the Tonight Show that they can take photos at. Like, that lives there. So they know what I do, and I do all the holiday parties and wrap parties for different TV shows and things like that. So that's definitely helped as well. We make those connections to further ourselves, and networking. And
yeah, and it speaks to the opportunities that were adjacent to your industry. And I think that, your story might not be relatable to everybody, but your process probably is. If you're somebody who works in an industry, there are likely adjacent opportunities to make money, meet people who can forward you onward. And it sounds to me like you've really mastered this in your world. And again, I just wanted to bring you on because the story is fun, the opportunity is fun, the products are really great, and so to take it in one further direction, you talked about figuring out what the next thing is before anybody else does. Can you allude to what that might be in 23 and 24, maybe 25?
Last year we started one. So there, and we won't say we're the first, because we're not. There's a few companies in the States that they converted old retro phones, like rotary dial phones, and they made them audio guest books for events. And we saw that, and I have a close partner of mine that lives in Australia, does the same thing I do. We're very close friends, and we're partners in a way. And he came to me and was like, I see this as the next thing. And it's not even photo related, but it's still, it's a subtract to what we do, and it's a rental space. And we saw it as like, hey, what if we build these, we make them better, we add some different features that these companies aren't doing, and then we jumped in pretty quickly, and we started this rental business in 4 countries. He operates in Australia, I run the US, and then we have a partner in the UK and a partner in New Zealand. And we have these rotary phones, and we drop ship them to events. And in the first 6 months, it made 6 figures. And I don't even go to the events. It's just managing a bookable, which is a inventory system that people can book on, and a Go Shippo account where I just, printing round trip UPS labels. And it's minimal work, not a lot of overhead, especially because we're building the phones, we're not buying them. And yeah, like now it's a huge trend, because we started selling them to our industry. And last year, we sold some, and we were selling them for like $2,200 to other photo booth companies. And then this year at our big like convention, people are selling them for like $200 straight out of China that are like shittier versions. And we're just like, here we go. And now everyone's doing it. But we got in so early that we have the SEO. You know, you search it, we come up, we're 2 or 3 on Google always. And we operate nationwide versus people that are just doing their towns or adding it to a photo booth, this and that. What's next? Probably more video stuff and really high-end video stuff. Mm-hmm. I think, you know, we're in the age of TikTok and Reels, and I think people just want unique content or user-generated content, UGC they call it, and it's just building out like really elaborate sets and having directors of photography and a director come with professional lighting, and it's about bringing in a film crew versus like me just saying like, hey, I can do this. No, it's, hey, here's my tech to instant process and make a little mini music video in 10 seconds and instantly share it to the guests. But you're the guy with the Steadicam who, you know, is great, has a great visual eye for directing and cinematography. And then let's bring in this grip who knows the lighting. And we make this unique, basically a mini film set, a mini music video, and the guests are in a different world. They get to do something that they only get to normally see on the internet or TV, you know, on those red carpets. Hey, what are those celebs doing at the Vanity Fair, Oscars party, at the Met Gala, those kind of things. Whoa, I get to be part of this. And that was the thrill of the 360 photo booth 5 years ago. So now we're bringing this into something new. And there are definitely more clients reaching out for video-based things.
Yeah, it's exciting, and I think you're absolutely right. The experiential portion of of what you are selling can't be understated. Is that, you know, you may be renting out a photo booth or shipping a phone across the country, but you are ultimately selling an experience, and you're doing a great job at it. So I have to go back to the phone concept just to make sure I understand it on my own. This is a rotary phone where you pick it up, it starts recording your voice. He's gonna go get one. I love it. I didn't mean to push all your buttons. I was just trying to hit mute. That is such a cool background doohickey, and it changed in real time as we were talking, and so that was fun as well. So let me see one of these phones.
They're basically an old GPO 746 rotary phone that we took the guts out, and we have a custom computer on this base plate. We have it in 10 different colors, and guests pick it up, and it's either standard greeting, or it could be the bride and groom or a corporate client with a custom greeting, and then a beep happens like a voicemail. Yep. You leave your message, you hang up, it saves it as an MP3 file, and then we get the phones back and we send them everything.
Okay, so you have to retrieve the phones. This isn't like a thumb drive or anything. Okay.
Retrieve the phones. We send them a whole like digital gallery. We can press a vinyl for them, put it on it. We've had people ask for cassettes with a cassette player. What's old is new again. Like the 90s are back. This retro vibe is back. The phones are fascinating because people make their own use cases for them. Like we just saw it as like weddings. I've had funeral directors reach out that wanted to use it. And then the corporate space is like a wild space. We had Audible reach out and they said, we don't need the phones to record. We have Rachel Brosnahan from The Marvelous Miss Maisel who has a new podcast, and we just want a randomized message from her to play when people pick up the phone at the bar. Almost like a scavenger hunt, like it told you like the next thing you need to do. Yeah, that's awesome. They're like, we want 3 phones for 3 weeks with these custom, like 5 different messages that randomize when you pick up. And we coded it out. We have developers, and we did that and sent them out. And I'm like, got the phones back. I didn't even have to do anything because the messages were irrelevant. They just wanted to hear the pre-recorded and go. So it's always wild, you know, when clients come to you with an idea you would never even think was possible for what you're selling. And that's just funny at that point. You're like, sure, I can do it. Yeah, $6,000, you know?
Exactly. It's fun. It's exciting. I mean, I could talk to you again in a couple of years, and you could tell me that this has gone in a direction that you've not seen coming yet. And it's really fun that way. And so I appreciate you spending a little bit of time with us, showing a little bit behind the curtain of your business. And so if you don't mind, we're going to head into a couple of rapid fire questions known as the how-to cues. You ready?
Let's do it.
Outstanding. Question number 1. I want to know the best book you've read in the last year or so.
Oh, God. I'm so busy. I don't think I've read a book in the past year.
That's fair. So we'll pivot. We'll table that question, and maybe it'll come back to fruition. Are you a podcaster? Do you have one of those that you subscribe to?
I don't listen to a ton of podcasts. I'm more of a Howard Stern guy, if anything, in the car. But there are always, things that pique my interest. I'm forgetting the name of it right now, but every once in a while I try to listen to podcasts or things like we're doing right now with people in the industry and how to create businesses and how creatives. I listen to a lot of like marketing type conversations with different agencies and those kind of things.
There you go. Just different things to keep you sharp. I can appreciate it. Question number 3. What is one app on your phone that you could not live without?
Sadly, probably Instagram and TikTok, more just, from a personal level, but I get ideas from it. You just see things and you see what, kids are starting to do, what the new trend is of the week, and how can I do that in my world?
Yeah, makes total sense. And you're again one step removed from monetizing it in a different way than they're trying to do it. So I love it. What is an item that you have purchased in the last 12 months for around $100 that has brought you a lot of value?
Around $100 that has brought me a lot of value. That's hard because I deal with so much in electronics and whatnot. I would say, and it's probably a little more than $100. I don't remember what the subscription cost is, but the app Bookable that runs our phone business, basically, that keeps track of all of our inventory and basically says, these phones are available on this date, so I'm not overbooking or anything. Tells me when we have, keeps me in line. That has been a godsend to me. So it's not a physical item, but.
Yeah, sounds like I need something like that in my personal life, because how many times have we tried to rebook this conversation? I can totally be guilty to that party. So one final question for you. I want everybody listening to know, where can people find out more about you and your business?
Yeah, so 2 websites, Studio Z, Photobooths.com, and then our phone rentals are atthebeep.co. Yeah.
Outstanding. Zach, I appreciate your time. We'll link to the websites in the notes below. Hopefully people will check you out, have an opportunity to do a wedding or an event. Look to Zach and the types of businesses he's doing. He can help you with these things, and you'll probably have a lot of fun with it.
Yeah.
Special thanks to Zach for joining me on this episode of the show. You can get in touch with Zach at his website. Maybe you can check out his stuff, buy his stuff, rent his stuff. He's doing a lot of cool things, and I'm just really thankful that he was willing to join me on the show. If you got any feedback for the episode, any questions for me, any questions for Zach, you can hit me in the comments down below. And if you've got any other types of entrepreneurs like this that you want me to interview, I'm happy to do it. It's so much fun. Happy to share the content with you afterwards when it's all put together. And let me know down below if you know anybody like that. If you are looking to transact real estate in the Indianapolis market or the greater Indiana market, get in touch with me in the comments down below or at indiedwell.com. And as always, you can subscribe to the show, be the first to know about new long-form content every Wednesday, short-form content every other day of the week, and just get a look inside of my brain, which is as scary of a place as you think it is. Until next time, this is Anthony Drew Gary, host of The How To Show, signing off.